What's up, everybody, and welcome back to Fireside Rangers. I'm your host, Anthony Rivardo, joined by my co-host, Eric Wilson, and the New York Rangers had the debut of Patrick Kane last night, and they fell flat. It did not go as expected, a 5-3 loss to Ottawa. They went 0 for 4 on the power play. Tyler Mott got injured. It just wasn't what we wanted it to be. We wanted to see Patrick Kane go out there and get a win in his first game with the Rangers. Unfortunately, we will have to keep waiting to see that happen because last night was a very disappointing loss. And one quote to summarize what went wrong. This quote from Gerard Gallant will tell you exactly what it was. Quote, "The defense was awful tonight. Defensively, we were awful." End quote. And I 1000% agree with Gerard Gallant. I'm sure many of you do as well. And Eric, I'm sure you also are in complete agreement with the head coach of the New York Rangers. So we're going to go ahead and dive into last night's game, react to it, give you the recap, go over some stats, and discuss what the Rangers need to do to go out there and hopefully get a win with Patrick Kane on Saturday against Boston. But before we dive into all that, make sure to leave a like if you do enjoy this episode, and subscribe to the channel if you are new. But without further ado, Eric, how are you doing today, my friend? And what are your thoughts on last night's game?
I mean, I'm doing pretty good. I think you summarized it perfectly with that quote and also just saying that it was disappointing. Patrick Kane's debut, we're all expecting a lot right there against a team like Ottawa who really isn't that good. They're close to being in a wild card spot, but when you compare it to the New York Rangers, that should have been a pretty solid win right there. But, defensively, we continue to struggle, as Gerard Gallant mentioned, and I think that's really what it comes down to. And it's not even just on the defensive core as well. Even like the offensive players we have, they did not contribute defensively at all either, which is a problem that we're going to kind of have to address soon because, defense wins championships. And as we've seen with teams like the Toronto Maple Leafs throughout the last couple of years, where they load up on all this offensive star power, they can score like 5 goals a game. But when your defense is letting in 6 goals a game, you're still going to lose. So we're going to have to figure out the defense real quick.
So one thing that I will say is I agree with you. The offensive players weren't really contributing defensively, minus Tyler Mott. But of course, he got injured in the first period. He made a really nice defensive play at one point in the first period. However, I think it was on that play, actually, he got decked against the glass, and of course is now in concussion protocol. Maybe a really big hit to the head. It was a dirty hit. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that, Eric? I know that we were really excited about trading for Tyler Mott, like what he could bring to that fourth line, really solid depth out there. How big of a loss do you think that is if he's not able to play in the next few games?
I mean, it's a pretty big loss right there. He's one of our best defensive forwards. He kills penalties. I know there was one play we were talking about together during the game where the Rangers were going to ice the puck, and then Mott, it was the play right before he got injured where he skated as fast as he could down there and cleared out the icing. And I texted you and I was like, this is like what Sammy Blais was supposed to do, but just never could on that bad ACL that he had right there. So losing Mott for a couple games is going to be a pretty big thing, especially in this little defensive slump that we have going on. The hit looked pretty bad. Originally, I thought he would be okay, but it's kind of looking like he might be heading towards concussion protocol. So it might be a little bit until we see Tyler Mott return for the Rangers, which is a pretty devastating loss right there.
Yeah, I mean, dude got drilled in the head. That was pretty bad, like a real devastating hit. But another thing to key in on here from this Rangers game before we really start talking about Patrick Kane is the power play. 0 for 4 on the power play. I know, obviously, they had a shorthanded goal with Chris Kreider. It was a beautiful goal in the first period. But for the entirety of the game, I mean, there was a stretch there where the Rangers were getting back-to-back-to-back power plays, and they just weren't able to capitalize on any of them. And I know, obviously, when you look at our power play units and you look at the Rangers offense, I mean, it's incredible, the players that they have on these lines, but still in this game, unable to capitalize on any of the power plays. Eric, what do you think went wrong and how do they solve this problem?
I mean, I think they were just trying to overcomplicate things on the power play. Our power play this season has already been like pretty incredible. It's the top 10 in the league, especially like also our penalty killing as well. And then you add in Patrick Kane to the mix. It switches up the lines. You got Kako down on the second power play unit now. And, we had this talk about how like years ago, back when Panarin was on Chicago, him and Patrick Kane had incredible chemistry together. And it kind of just seemed like last night, despite like Kane looked pretty solid overall, but it was like him and Panarin were trying to like force plays to each other that like necessarily didn't need to happen. I felt like they were trying to be too fancy with it, reconnect right off the bat. And You look at like Tarasenko, like obviously he scored in his like second shift as a Ranger, but then after that, it took him like a couple games to really get like settled in with the organization and learn the players and learn the lines and style of play. And it's going to be the same thing for Patrick Kane. For the last like 16 years, Patrick Kane has been on the same team with like relatively the same core up until the last couple of years. So you just throw him on the Rangers, and despite him being a superstar, world-class player, like it's going to take a minute. You can't just hit the ice and immediately be a game changer. It's going to take a little bit. So I think for the next couple of games, as Kane gets settled in, I think he needs to like learn this new style of play. Obviously, he has that connection with Panarin, but he's never played with Zibanejad. He's never played with Kreider. He's never played with Fox. So despite the power play lines looking really solid overall, the goals will start to come. It'll just take time.
Yeah, and I agree with you on maybe the Rangers were getting a little too fancy at times. And Gerard Gallant had a quote that kind of relates to this. I'll read that off from Molly Walker. Quote, when you play a game of hockey for 60 minutes, you got to do more stuff than just make the real nice passes. We've got to reset some pucks. We got to get better forechecking, more pressure. There was good chemistry, and they made some really nice plays, but our team has to get better than that. And so I think that really ties into what we were just saying. And I think there was a couple moments where Patrick Kane maybe had an opportunity to shoot the puck, but instead would just pass it across the ice to Artemi Panarin, who would hit a slap shot. And I think that those opportunities are exactly what you're talking about, Eric, where maybe just being more individually aggressive rather than looking for that one extra fancy highlight reel pass. That might be the difference, but that's really just about Patrick Kane getting comfortable with the system that he's in with the Rangers and settling in. And he had a quote actually about that as well. Patrick Kane did. So, quote, we've got 4 days in between games, so it'll be nice to settle in, get a couple practices, and understand the way they want to play systematically with the puck, offensive zone, things like that, Kane said. They haven't given me too much yet, just telling me to go out there and play, but it'll be nice to settle in and play a little better for my teammates, end quote. So, I guess now it's time to really talk about Patrick Kane and his performance in this game, Eric. But what are your thoughts on that quote, talking about needing to settle in and looking forward to having practice days just so he can get into the groove with his teammates? And how do you think that relates to his performance last night?
I mean, he's right. It's going to be a big help. I mean, he was just traded to the Rangers like 3 days ago, and he missed like the first game since the trade because, he has to pack up his entire life and move out to New York City. And then immediately the day later, you're playing in your first game. So he has had like zero time to like connect to the players on the Rangers and like reunite with Panarin and like learn all the plays and stuff right there. So obviously we play against Boston tomorrow. So he'll get like a good 2 or 3 practices in before that. So he might look a little better, a little more confident, might be more familiar with the system. And then after that, having 4 days off, straight practicing, straight learning. I think after that, we should see like a whole new side of Kane right there. That's going to look really good. But like the way that he played, he looks solid. He's one of those players where whenever he's on the ice, that he's there. He's always doing something. He's never just like skating around being invisible like we've seen with a couple of other players this season. But as soon as he just gets that confidence, it's really going to just start producing points right there, especially with Trocheck, who's been playing really well recently, and then Panarin, who always plays well. It's going to be a dangerous line once that settles in. The biggest thing that we do have to worry about, though, is the defensive aspect of it. I know we were talking about the defense earlier, so just to bring it back to that, when the defensive core is already playing bad, and then at this trade deadline, the players that we acquired in Tarasenko and Kane, they're not that well known for their defensive abilities. They're pretty much all goal scoring, offense, passing, playmaking. There's really like no forecheck or back check when it comes to them right there. So we kind of need them to contribute, especially at this time where we're down a couple of defensemen. We have to give like not that good defenseman like Nico Mikkola more ice time while Lindgren's out and Miller's on suspension. So they got to have to step up and play a little bit of defense there as well. So that's like the one critique that I'll really say about Patrick Kane. And we can even just throw in Tarasenko right there. They need to step up and play a little bit more defensively instead of just going for the goals and the points right now.
Yeah, and I think that getting Keandre Miller back is going to be huge for the Rangers because, like you mentioned, Mikkola, I don't necessarily think he's a bad player by any means. I mean, he was +1 in 18 minutes and 54 seconds of ice time last night, but he's not Keandre Miller, and I think that the Rangers do just need those players back that you mentioned, Lindgren as well, get those guys back defensively, and it'll make a huge impact on this team. But with Patrick Kane, it's interesting to say because I know we were texting during the game last night, Eric, and I was like, well, maybe there's a little bit of nerves, uncomfortability playing in the Garden at home. It's his Rangers debut. Maybe it was some of that. And I know you were saying it's Patrick Kane. He doesn't get nervous, but I don't know. I think that he just needs to settle in, and I think nerves were a little bit of a part of it. But when we were talking about the confidence, because you mentioned the word confidence, Eric, talking about the confidence of this team, some of the players out there looked really confident in the first period. I thought Artemi Panarin looked extremely confident and really comfortable and happy to be playing alongside Kane again. But I don't know if Kane was necessarily matching his energy. I think Kane is just still a little bit uncomfortable playing on a new team for the first time in his career. So I guess, Eric, what are your thoughts on that? The confidence of the players, where it was in the first period versus where it ended up being by the third period. It seemed like the confidence just steadily declined all game long. Kreider looked really confident on his goal. Tarasenko with an awesome goal. There was a lot of confidence to start the game, but it all just came crashing down kind of like midway through. So I guess what is your confidence level in these players, and what do you think about the confidence that they had to begin last night's game?
Yeah, I mean, I know like when the game started, MSG was electric right there. Every player was skating fast. They were playing hard. Every time Patrick Kane touched the puck, the entire arena would just light up in cheers right there. And then, a couple of players made mistakes. Halak let in like 2 goals in like 10 seconds or something like that. And then I think that was the turning point right there. After that happened, Halak kind of just started to sell a little bit. On this channel, we never blame the goaltenders, but that third goal that we let in, that was Halak right there. Like he could have had that. And then with Tyler Mott getting removed and the lines having to been shifted around and stuff, like the whole thing just got messed up. When you start off a game playing with like certain players and someone gets injured, then you're playing with other people, and then the defense starts to slip up a little bit. It all just came crashing down. So I don't know if this is like necessarily going to be a problem that's long term. I think it was just we started off really good and it kind of just collapsed right now. But when this little break that we have coming up, just got to get it back together. We'll have Miller back. We'll hopefully have Lindgren back by that point. And for the first time, we will see the full team in full effect right there. Despite all these trades that have happened, this isn't the final lineup just yet. We still have guys that are injured and we have guys that are suspended. So don't freak out just yet. I'm still confident in the team. And I know that Patrick Kane is confident as well. I don't know for him specifically if it was a nerve thing. He's won 3 Stanley Cups. He's won the MVP. He's a superstar. That's like saying that like LeBron James goes to a new team and he's like, I don't know what to do. But it's just more of a comfortability thing. New arena, new team, just doesn't really know everyone yet. So he'll settle in.
Yeah, I don't think it'll take him too long to settle in, but last night I think that he did look a little unsettled. I mean, he had one breakaway where he almost scored on, and that was nice. And I mean, he was playing with confidence. I don't think that his confidence was shaken. I just think it's comfortability for Kane. One more thing that I want to discuss though, Eric, is the kid line. They really did not come to play last night. They were all 3 of them -2, Hedel -2, 0 goals, 0 assists, Lafreniere 0 goals, 0 assists, -2, Kako same stat line. The only one who really got active, Hedel had 3 shots. Kako had 0 shots, didn't even put the puck up, and Lafreniere only had 1 shot. So, and if you look at the time on ice that these guys had, Hedel with 15 minutes, 17 seconds, Kako with 15 minutes, 28 seconds, and Lafreniere 13 minutes, 29 seconds. So not a ton of playing time from the kid line, but when they were out there, that seems to be when the goals were pouring in against the Rangers. So talking about the offensive players needing to get more involved defensively, maybe that applies more to the kids than anything. I'm curious to know what your thoughts are on the performance of the kid line last night, Eric, and if you think that maybe the influx of new talent above them in the top 6 is affecting how they're playing on that third line.
I mean, I'm sure it's a factor, but I don't know if we can put all the blame on it. If you have a line that's like plays consistently together the entire time, if one or two of them have a bad game, they're pretty much all going to have a bad game, and that's pretty much all I would just like chalk this up to. And you look at the last couple of games, Lafreniere has been on fire, so is Kako, and even Hedel, just not as much as like Lafreniere, but they just weren't there last night. Obviously, we wish that they would have contributed more. And you look at like other time on ice that you've seen people play, we didn't have that many forwards. So we were rolling the top 6 a little bit more than we usually would, especially Patrick Kane's debut. You want to get him to play as much as possible so he can become more comfortable with the team and the ice and stuff. So I don't think it's anything that we need to like freak out about. It was just they had a bad game. It happens to everyone. So that's just my take on it. I
Yeah,
don't.
and no one had a worse game than the defense, though. So before we wrap this up, Eric, like, what's the key to getting this defense back in check? I know obviously we're waiting for a couple players to come back, but just defensively, the Rangers were really poor. They asked too much of Yaroslav Halak, who didn't play too great. He had a .879 save percentage, let in 4 goals on 33 attempts, so only had 29 saves. So, I mean, what are your thoughts on that, and in terms of how the Rangers can improve defensively going forward?
I mean, you kind of answered your own question. It's a waiting game. We're playing with 5 defensemen right now, and 2 of them are Nico Mikkola and Ben Harper. You can't really expect much. Adam Fox literally played like almost 30 minutes. Like, I think we have 29 minutes and 34 seconds time on ice for Adam Fox. So you're having to play like these guys who are like really bad a lot, and then you're gonna have to take all of your best defensemen and like overwork the hell out of them, having them play half the game. So it's just a waiting game. As soon as Lindgren's back, as soon as Miller's back, everything will just kind of revert back to normal. Might take like a game or two for them to get like resituated with everything as well. And then even like when Mott comes back, that'll help too. If Mott had played the whole game, who knows, maybe we wouldn't have collapsed because of his defensive skills as well. So kind of just waiting game at this point, but I think it'll be okay.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. I mean, we were really excited because the Rangers got all these new players. We're like, okay, we finally get to see everyone on the ice together, Tarasenko and Kane, but we didn't really get to see everyone on the ice together because, of course, Igor didn't play last night. Andre Miller still out of lineup, Lindgren as well, and then Tyler Mott got injured in the first period. So we didn't really get to see this team at full strength for Kane's debut. But tomorrow against Boston, Eric, how do you think that the Rangers go out there on the road and get that win?
It's going to be tough, as we've mentioned actually a lot recently. The last couple of videos, Boston is incredible, having a very historic season right now, and they are filled with a lot of offensive star power. I don't want to say like luckily, but I guess like it works in our favor that Brad Marchand, one of Boston's best forwards, is currently like injured right now. So we like hope he's okay, but we got to use that to our advantage right there. Really, just lock up the defense, having like a really great goal scorer, not playing against us most likely, but it's really just going to come down to the offense. They're going to score a lot of goals on us. We're probably going to see Igor tomorrow, because you're not going to play Halak against a team like Boston. And just offense, they're going to score a lot. We got to score more. That's just all we really got to it.
Yep, and our last 2 games against Boston have not gone our way. Game 1, November 3rd, Boston wins 5-2. Game 2, January 19th, Boston wins 3-1. Hopefully, the Rangers can right these wrongs and turn things around on the season series tomorrow afternoon. However, you're right, it's going to be a tough game, especially considering the Rangers are down 2 defensemen and down Tyler Mott, most likely, for tomorrow's game. So it'll be interesting, but hopefully the Rangers can pull out the win. Of course, we will recap you on that game, especially if the Rangers get the win. We'll be celebrating right here on Fireside Rangers. So make sure to subscribe to the channel if you are new. Leave a like if you enjoyed this episode and comment your thoughts down below. We'll catch you on the next one. Have a good one, and let's go Rangers.
Rangers.